3 days after Harriet returned from India, we landed in Guadalajara. Our luggage bulged with diapers, advice books, baby clothes, blankets, a car seat, a portable bed, and a Snuggly, all bought or borrowed at the last minute. Back at home, friends were putting the finishing touches on the baby's room. We decided to call him Andrew. The sooner we knew his name, Denise had told us, the sooner his mother, Margarita, could register his birth and say goodbye. I tried to imagine her writing a foreign name she'd probably never heard and might repeat for the rest of her life. Margarita was Indian, Denise had told us, the father of mixed blood. Any one of these faces could be Andrew's. Denise met us near the exit and took us to her car. She'd found us a residential hotel a half-hour away in the center of Guadalajara, near the court offices where the adoption would take place. There was a bedroom, a small kitchen, and a front room for the baby. We should settle in, she said. She'd be right back with the child. Harriet unpacked while I looked around. A night nurse would be by in a few hours to help show us how to care for an infant. I wondered if a biological father felt as anxious as I did, waiting to see his child for the first time. I knew of one major difference. Between us and our baby lay not 9 months of pregnancy and preparation, but 3 years of petitions, paperwork, and pressure. I could remember every resistance and doubt we had felt along the way to earn the right to have a child. And even after we'd found the child, every word of warning we had received to reject it if things didn't seem right. Just make sure it's healthy, one friend had cautioned. Just make sure the adoption's legal before you get attached, said another. It was sad to realize how stacked the deck was against love at first sight. Even now, all I could feel for sure was the fear with which the world so often meets a stranger. Not just a stranger, but the biggest blind date in my life. The door opened, and in came Denise with her father, Carlos, a tall, thin man who carried the baby high in his arms. Harriet rushed ahead, and Carlos lowered the baby for her to look. He was as Denise had described him, small, lots of hair, and very quiet. I noticed Harriet had left her camera behind. I didn't pick it up either. Like her, I wanted both hands free to hold my son.
In Guadalajara, you're going to have the legal...
The next day, Denise laid out the plan. We'd get Andrew's adoption decree and passport in Guadalajara, and then go to Mexico City for his exit visa to the United States. The paperwork was in order, and a distinguished lawyer stood by to cut through whatever red tape cropped up. With luck, we'd be finished in 2 weeks. Every day, we'd go to the court office with our tower of paperwork, giving them the documents they wanted and filling out the forms they required. The rattle of typewriters and the ring of rubber stamps seemed almost musical. Between court appointments, there was time for shopping and celebration with Denise and Carlos. And after every official meeting, a chance for congratulations, pictures, and smiles. It seemed almost too good to be true. It was. Within a week, the process bogged down. A court appearance scheduled for Wednesday would have to be delayed till Thursday. A report promised at the end of the first week wouldn't be ready till the second, or maybe the third. And even though Margarita had signed papers surrendering Andrew, the courts kept interrogating her, wanting to know if she'd been paid or coerced to give up her child.
It doesn't matter why.
The 2-week deadline for the adoption now seemed impossible. How long would it drag on? Another week? A month? A year? Then the news got worse. The newspapers had been full of scandal about illegal adoptions. A lawyer had gone to jail. Though our adoption was legal, 2 social workers would be coming to interview us in our hotel room sometime that week. Once again, I was buying cookies to speed things along.
¿Y usted cómo encontró al bebé? ¿Cómo se puso en contacto?
By now, we weren't afraid of losing time. We were afraid of losing Andrew. After questioning us, the social workers would call in Margarita. And for the third time in 10 days, an official agency would make her relive and defend perhaps the most difficult decision of her life. What if, after all that, she changed her mind?
¿Tienen algún familiar, su esposa y usted?
Yo tengo un hermano y mi hermana.
Denise had given us a little picture of her to show Andrew someday, and often during the next few nights, I'd look at it. She was 21. Andrew was her fourth child, and only the second to survive. Her parents watched over this other little boy in a town hundreds of miles away, and Margarita saw him only once a year. She'd managed to get some training as a nurse, and had been trying to live on her own in the city instead of as a maid in someone's house. Things had just started looking up for her when she'd learned that she was pregnant, and that the father was already married with a family of his own. She no longer looked like such a stranger. She'd counted on us to raise and love her baby. We'd have to count on her to do what she thought was best. A few days later, Denise called with the good news. The court would give us our adoption decree early the following week. Andrew would be ours. It would be safe for me to return now to a job in Boston. While Andrew stayed with Carlos and Denise, Harriet would come back several days later herself to pull together Andrew's room. Then she'd return for the final phase of paperwork to get Andrew his visa and bring him home. Denise told me that parting with Andrew had been hard for Margarita, and she'd cried many times. But all along, she'd known it was the right thing. He would have opportunities she'd never dreamed of, and she'd been happy for him. He would be flying to his new home in a plane.